Welcome to the West Peak Sessions. This episode is brought to you by Star Surf and Skate. Opened by surf industry legend Dave Kennedy way back in 1980, Star Surf has long been WA's premier surf shop, and that legacy continues today. Boasting a massive range of more than 500 surfboards, including models from Firewire, Slater Designs, Channel Islands, DHD and Pyzel, and Star Surf are the largest JS Industries dealer in WA. Surfboards are shipped with no charge for freight, and if that's not enough, Star Surf is also home to owner Ian Wooly McPherson's epic YouTube channel Wooly TV for the best surfboard reviews on the World Wide Web. And it doesn't end there. Star is also the home of MSL, Mandurah Surf Lessons, and many of the coaches work both in MSL and Star, so the staff can help you with all your surf hardware and coaching needs all in the one place. Visit Star Surf and Skate today, Mandurah Terrace Mandurah, or online at starsurf.com.au. All right, let's get started.
All right, so look, before we get started today, this is an epic occasion for the West Peak Sessions with our next guest on the show, but it is a bit of a sad day for the surfing world at large with the news overnight that legendary surf photographer Art Brewer has passed away. Art was actually locked in to be a guest on the podcast. He was a great photographer and a great man, so it's a huge loss to the surfing community. So I just want to extend my condolences to Nina and to Art's huge network of family and friends around the globe. Rest in peace, mate. You will be sadly missed. But with that sad news out of the way, I'm very excited to introduce my next guest. I've been a fan for a very long time. So look, if we go back to the early days of surf cinema, there was obviously some fantastic documentaries, The Endless Summer, the 5 Summer Stories, Morning of the Earth. But Hollywood's early attempts at surf movies were pretty average, Gidget and the Beach Blanket movies starring Frankie Avalon, Annette Funicello, and Blue Hawaii with none other than Elvis Presley. Look, they were all pretty commercial, weren't they? And they didn't quite get it right. But for me personally, in my lifetime, there was 3 movies that in some way or another got it right. Big Wednesday in the 70s, North Shore in the 80s, and Point Break in the 90s. And we are lucky enough today to have a man who starred in 2 of those, not Gary Busey, none other than Mr. John Philbin himself. G'day, John. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Brad. That's a great introduction. Isn't Gary Busey amazing? Oh, my God. That guy's been in two of the greatest.
Yeah.
Big Wednesday is my favorite surf movie. Of course, when I was growing up, I saw Endless Summer, black and white, in my living room. And then the first surf movie I got to, and I was already surfing by this time, was 5 Summer Stories. You mentioned it. Those movies just totally, the power of cinema and images changed my life. 5 Summer Story and Big Wednesday. And then Big Wednesday, I was like, Hollywood made a movie about me. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
And I'm jumping way ahead, but when North Shore came around, Hollywood's making a surf movie and Jerry Lopez is in it and the guy surfs Pipeline. It was unbelievable. But anyway, I don't want to jump ahead. I just want to say, peace out to, Art Brewer. He's all over the internet right now. What an artist. And images are so powerful. That guy dedicated his life to these images that affect us so much. So what a life of service, as an artist, doing what he loved and then providing so much entertainment for and art for us. I wanted to say, because I was doing my due diligence research on you before I had to do this interview, and you have a very impressive roster of people you've interviewed, and I listened to some of them. But before the interviews, you talk about Wooly and Star Surf. What is your relationship with Ian Wooly and Star Surf? Is it exactly?
That was the conversation I was having with your fiance while she was so graciously setting up our internet for us.
Nothing without her.
Yeah. So I know that you have a relationship with Wooly. I was going to drop that on you at some point. Yeah. So look, Wooly's listening right now. No question about that.
I listened to I'm so glad I listened to your thing, because you talk about Wooly and his Star Surf, and I have an amazing story with that guy, that legend, that hero, that I'll never forget for the rest of my life. So me and Wooly are bonded for the rest of our life through a surf experience at Grudgigan that nobody can beat. It doesn't matter who you are. No one can top it. People can do stuff as gnarly, but they can never do anything gnarlier than what me and Wooly did at G-Land together. Just us, nobody else.
I know this story.
You
But
do?
my listeners don't. It's on my list of things to talk about.
Okay, then I won't mention it. If you're gonna bring, I was gonna bring. That was the most important thing on my mind. Period. It's the most important thing I had to say because I saw that Star Surf, supports you or funds you, and I wanted to ask. But if you're gonna ask, I won't say anything. But it was the most important thing to me, without a doubt.
It's coming. It's coming. That is awesome because we've baited the listeners now, and they're like, "I want to hear that story," but they're going to. But you're going to have to wait because we're going to go right back to the start. John, tell us, mate, where were you born? Where did you grow up? And what was it like as a kid for you?
I was born in Carmel, California, and the first time I saw surfing was at Carmel River Beach. I was with my mom. I was a little kid. There's a beautiful little bay there that never breaks, but for some reason there must have been some huge perfect west swell on a crisp offshore day. It was green, exploding white water. I'm in Carmel. I'm looking out. I'm a little kid. I don't know what I'm looking at, and I see these huge waves. I don't know how big they really were, but there were bright red and bright yellow and white longboards, because this is 1964 maybe.
Wow.
Taking off and going at an angle. And I was like, Mom, the riders are going at an angle on the green wave, and there's white around, but they're not going straight. They're going at an angle. See them? They're going at an angle. And I was like, that I wanted to do that. This is way before we moved. Then we moved to San Jose, and then we lived in San Rafael. I haven't even, I'd only been in the ocean in Carmel. And then when we finally moved down to Palos Verdes, I was in 3rd grade. Still, I didn't start surfing until I was in 5th or 6th grade. I had 2 years to try to find the beach. My dad insisted that I learn how to swim, so he put us in swimming lessons. My dad was a lifeguard when he was younger.
Right.
And, he insisted we learn how to swim. And as soon as I learned how to swim at Malaga Cove Pool, where everybody else who learned how to swim, it was right next to a beach called Rat Beach. And he said, okay, you can go to the beach now with your friends, and surfing in California in 1968, maybe it was like 69. It was the coolest, it was like, that's the thing to do if you can, so I'm going to the beach, buying used boards, and we're learning how to surf on longboards, no leashes at this shitty beach break that, also never breaks, but for us, it was just dreamy because we're learning, going through our knees to our feet. I just remember the first time I angled on a wave on the slide at an angle. Oh, I was hooked. As soon as I angled in the slide, going with my rail and down the line, it was over for me.
Loving that, man.
And it didn't happen right away either. We're out there, now it's different now. I teach surfing. And Willie knows, like, I'll take a beginner who's never surfed in their life, and I'll get him to a place, teach him how to stand up, push them on a wave, and they'll angle on the face of a wave all the way to the beach on their very first ride sometimes, depending on the equipment, which is like, some people I've ruined surfing for the world. There was a point where nobody, there wasn't that industry of teaching surfing, but now it's like there's a camp everywhere. And, I think one of my favorite things hey man, am I talking too much?
No, there's no such thing as talking too much on this podcast. If we have to go 3 episodes to tell the John Philbin story, we will do that because it is a rad story.
Coffee. Anyway, you asked me a question. I've been talking ever since. I can take a break.
Oh, but man, you've been describing the greatest scene ever to me. I mean, I love that you talk so much about angling because, for our younger listeners, guys are doing incredible 360 air rotations and all this mad stuff. It must be so hard for this young generation to imagine. But the time you're talking about, I mean, the Beach Boys talked about angling in the lyrics to their songs. What is it? They're angling down at Santa Cruz or something.
Yeah, that's right.
Because surfboards used to go straight because they were just big, fat planks of wood with no rocker and no fin. Right. And all of a sudden, with the revolution in surfboard design, you could angle and go across the face of the wave. It is actually a huge pivotal moment in the history of surfing to have been able to do that. And if that didn't happen, we wouldn't be where we are today, right? And you're also describing such a romantic time for someone like me, because I was born in 74. So I started surfing in the 80s, right? Which is why I'm such a big fan of you. And, that time to me is so romantic. You know, you guys, man, there would have been woodies in the car park, right? And there would have been longboards, and some crazy cats have got these little short ones, and you know they're all brightly coloured and psychedelic. You're listening to the Beach Boys and you know those Gidget movies we were talking about, and then there was that whole revolution, and it had a little bit to do with drugs, I've got to say, where we went from big boards to short boards, and we started riding in the tube and doing vertical re-entries, and Art Brewer was there taking photos. Man, what a time to be alive and be learning how to surf.
Yeah, it was very, very, very exciting. But I've listened to some of your things. Like I remember Brad Gerlach in your interviews, he described a time when he would go and hear the people hooting, you know, and probably I was smoking pot when Five Summer Stories came out, and people are hooting and like I'm stoned. And I think to this day, it's why if you go surf or watch me surf, I surf in slow motion. And I remember like I surf in slow motion because that's how I was just imitating surfers on my skateboard stoned at night going down. Now I'm imitating PT, you know, now I'm imitating, you know, Jeff Hackman, you know, now I'm imitating, you know, like on my skateboard, but they were surfing in slow motion in these movies and I still surf that way. And for me also, just to catch a wave and to angle, that's basically I've stayed in that, you know, maybe a couple turns, but I pretty much stayed in that like I'm angling.
George Reno's
on the line.
George Reno's images inside the tube on a knee board with Pink Floyd in the background. Wow.
It was just so powerful. Powerful images are powerful.
Cinema is a very powerful thing, as is music. So let's talk about that. You've obviously, you know, at some point you fall in love with this notion of acting and being in movies. How did that kind of happen?
I was in high school. I was surfing and I was on the wrestling team and I started doing plays. There was some, I don't know, I auditioned for a play and I got in and it was really fun. And I was like, oh, I'm going to go to drama class. And I was doing drama class in high school as a freshman and it was really fun. And then our Palos Verdes High School had a great drama teacher, Chip Hipkins, and we had a huge drama 3 thing. You know, it was a big deal to get into it. And I auditioned for it and I got into it for my senior year, my junior year. So it was really an advanced acting high school thing. And I had to decide whether I was going to be in the theater program or wrestling sports. And I was on a surf trip with my friends who were both great wrestlers. And I was super immature. I was 100 pounds. I mean, I was like, I matured really late and physically. And I peaked early though, but I matured really late. But
mentally you're still working on it, but you'll get there.
Yeah. I was driving and we had gone down to Stone Steps down in Encinitas. We're driving back up and my dad and Mr. Cost were in the front seat. And I was in the back seat with Ed and Rich Cost. They were fraternal twins and they were great wrestlers and wrestling was going to start. And they're like, hey, John, wrestling's going to start this week. I can't wait. Aren't you excited to be on the team? We're going to be varsity this year. And I'm like, I'm not going to wrestle this year. And it was just silent. The hair stand up on the back of the adults' heads and the kids are like, why not? And I said, I'm going to do theater instead. And it could even get quieter. And I remember Ed going, why? And I was just silent in the front and very still. And I said, well, you know that feeling you get when you're wrestling and you pin your opponent and it's as good as you can do. I mean, you pinned him. It's over. You know, you stand up, you're roaring. You're so adrenaline is you're so excited and you've done as good as you can do. They're like, yeah, we love that. I go, that's how it feels every time I walk on stage.
Yeah.
And I could just see my dad relax, you know, and Mr. Costco, okay. You know, and the kids are like, wow, they didn't get it, but my dad got it. He went, wow, John's found something he loves. And he can describe it, and he's owning it. And it's going against the peer pressure. Of being an athlete in high school, you know, to do theater. But as you know, I learned later that acting is actually very physical. There's a very physical aspect to it. You know, it's almost, you watch a really successful actor and you're watching an athlete, you're watching people do, like, look at Tom Cruise and what he does. He's a total athlete, you know.
Yeah.
He's also a brilliant, you know, film actor. But anyway, there's a lot of physicality to it. As I learned as I went into professional acting, I could bring my physicality from sports into film acting, like shooting guns and running, riding horses, you know, jumping, you know, fighting. There's a lot of physicality in it. And that came in handy for me.
For sure. And I think particularly in your roles, because you've combined your love of surfing and acting, but not straight away. So, and look, people who know me know that I'm a massive 80s horror movie fan. I've seen them all.
Me too.
Oh, man,
Huge
like
horror movie fan.
after this is over, I'm going to send you a list of all of the horror movies from, I've been watching them for 4 years, John, trying to get through the list of all the horror movies I saw as a kid. I'm not sure how I saw them all in like a year and a half, and it's taken me 4 years to catch up, and I'm not even halfway through the list. But you, sir.
That's all I used to do growing up before I surfed, is watch horror movies. That's all I used to do. And then I went through another stage when I stopped acting. All I watched was horror movies, Korean horror movies.
That's me. That's me to a T. But you start in literally with absolute, this is me coming right from the heart and being extremely honest. You start in two of my absolute favourites. So your first role was in Fritz Kirch's 1984 adaptation of a Stephen King short story called Children of the Corn, alongside Sarah Connor herself, Linda Hamilton. You played Amos, a young man on the eve of his 19th birthday who's about to be sacrificed to he who walks behind the rose. What a role, man. So how did you get from, and sorry, before I ask you this question, I'm going to acknowledge your bravery, mate, to go from the wrestling team to theatre and, the peer pressure. It's so hard to do in somewhere like Perth. I always look at someone like Heath Ledger and think he must have copped so much from his mates, because he went to a school that's famous for producing Australian rules football players, and he made the step to go and walk out on that stage. There's so much bravery involved. So I want to acknowledge that. Good on you for listening to your heart. But how did you get from the high school play to playing Amos in Children of the Corn? Do tell.
Okay, so I'm in love now. I've decided it's something I'm passionate about. I've gone against the peer pressure of what I'm supposed to do with my life. I go, I like this. I'm going to do this. I love it. And I'm digging it. I go to college and I start doing some plays in college. And we had a great program in high school. So I got a lot of encouragement. We won a lot of competitions. My teacher, Chip Hipkins, at the time said, you can do this. It's not for everybody, but I think you could actually do this. And then I'm in college at UC Santa Barbara. I'm on the surf team and I'm hanging out. I got a dog. I'm riding a bike on the beach and I'm like, I want to be an actor. I don't know anything about cities. I'm going to have to move to LA, if I want to be an actor, because I don't know if I could ever live in a city, And then I also at the same time realized I'm not going to get anything done if I stay up here. At that time, unfortunately, my mom had cancer. She had skin cancer, and I dropped out of school and I moved down to San Diego and I lived with her. And she died of melanoma cancer. It was brutal back then, 1980. And she was like, she was supportive of me acting and surfing. I mean, she was the only one. She was really cool. And I said, okay, I'm going to go to USC and study theater. I went and auditioned for the company. I got in. I moved to LA. I moved to LA and I went to USC and I studied acting with some really good actors: Eric Stoltz, Ali Sheedy, Anthony Edwards. Some really great actors were at USC, but a lot of those guys already had agents and everything. I didn't know anybody in the business. I was like, but I was so enthusiastic. I got out of there. I did a lot of theater there. I got out. I did a couple of plays, 2 plays in LA, 2 equity waiver plays, and a manager saw it. This is a long story, but this is how it happened in 1982 for me, or 83. I do a play. I do another play. A manager comes, says, you don't have a representation. I meet with this agent. He sends me on some interviews. I don't get anything. I don't know what I'm doing for like 10 or, I'm just suck. And I test for some things and I'm learning things along the way. And the next thing you know, I book a job, which is, I thought, a really important job. It was my first job I ever got. I suddenly had figured out film acting. I auditioned with Cher. I got this job to do a movie with Randall Kleiser. It was going to change the world. It was such an important film and everything. And before I go to shoot it, I've got a 6-week window. And my agent goes, hey, man, going on this audition for Children of the Corn. It's this low rate, horror movie, super cheap, low budget, but, it'll be good for your experience to work in front of a camera. I go in, I meet the casting directors, and I get the job for Amos. I read, and I'm excited because I know I'm going to do this big, important film, with a lot of Patrick Swayze was in this movie, by the way, that I'm gonna go do. After I do this low budget horror movie, Children of the Corn, that no one's ever gonna see. So I show up, I'm working on studying for my other part that I'm gonna do after this. I do Children of the Corn, which is, by the way, a great experience. Now, 40 years later, I've just come back from a convention, a horror movie convention. I went to 4, like in Pennsylvania, in Lexington, Kentucky, where they screen Children of the Corn and they interview us and we talk about what it was like. And then we meet the fans and sign autographs for a movie I did 40 years ago. And nobody's talking about the movie I did after that I thought was so precious. And it just goes to show that horror movies and horror fans are a breed apart. We are, and I'm a fan. So we are a breed apart, man. And they love the original 80s horror movies. There's a whole world out there of people that got lucky enough thinking that the movie was beneath them. Like Return of the Living Dead, Clu Gulager, he goes, this movie is beneath me, but I'm going to do it because actors need to work, you know? He didn't know what the fuck he was doing. And and he's done 100 films with huge actors. It will be the movie he is most remembered by. And right before he died, he goes, I thought this movie was beneath me, and it will turn out to be the movie I am most remembered and loved for. And that is what horror movies have done for me. I've taken a full cycle of like, actors only do these because, you know, they're young and nobody knows who they are and they're cheap and they can get them in there and kill them, you know, like you can move forwards in your career. As it turns out, those are the most loved and remembered and important movies of your life sometimes, you know, and that's been my experience.
Yeah, for sure. That's awesome. And I think, you know, we're sort of pop culture nerds in so many ways because, you know, the surfing, we're all pop culture nerds. We love the history of the sport and everything that went with it because, you know, it's so cultural. It wasn't just the sport like wrestling, you know. And, you know, I'm kind of 3 things. I'm a surf nerd, I'm a music nerd, and a horror movie nerd flat out. And I love that your career has, you know, danced around all of those things. A year later, you're playing Chuck in the movie you mentioned, Return of the Living Dead, an absolute classic, directed by Dan O'Bannon, you know, man that worked on the Alien movies and Total Recall, Invaders from Mars, the list goes on. What was that role? I mean, you know, you were kind of playing a nerdy kind of guy. You're just
I played a new wave nerd in love with a punk rock chick. Yeah. I'm hanging around all these gnarly punks and I don't fit in. I'm a guy in love with a girl that won't give him the time of day, but he just keeps trying and he's kind of a nerd. And I realize, you know, now later in life, most nerds can relate to that character. You know, like that chick's hot. I'm throwing my geeky self out there, but I'm not getting any rewards, but I'm not getting anything back. And it is a horror movie. We do die at the end. We are being chased by zombies. I mean, Dan O'Bannon's first time zombies move fast, punk rock, comedy. So he invented a genre. I call it the zomedy. We at the time didn't know what we were making. We're like, I mean, some people maybe did. I didn't. I'm trying to be Robert De Niro. You know, I'm like, oh, okay, I'm serious. I'm serious as fuck. And I'm totally serious. You know, like you can watch it and go, what movie are you in, John? Like, but you know, sometimes I fool around, but we were all pretty inexperienced, you know, actors trying to do our best, but we had no idea what he could see. Right. And so, yes, that's another movie where, you know, like, I don't know how this is going to be. I mean, I just want to go do my important movie after this, but you know, it was cool. Dan O'Bannon's a special guy. Like, I don't know anyone in this movie. There's no one in it, you know, like, and I hope nobody sees it to like, thank you for letting me be in this movie and be part of your lives, you know, like 40 years. It's just
amazing. And if you didn't surf, you would have been remembered forever as a cult figure in those horror movies, but you had something else that came along that was even bigger for you in a cult sense, and you will forever be Turtle to so many of us, a legendary role. And I love that you talk about your, you know, being Robert De Niro and being serious in Return of the Living Dead, because I've got a bit to say about the level of kind of seriousness that you put into Turtle as well. But let's go there. So you've moved to LA, you've taken some time off from surfing because you're so focused on landing these movie roles. How did you suddenly find yourself back in the water playing Turtle?
I had kind of quit surfing. All I was doing was working on film. And my agent, Steve Dontonville, ICM at the time, sent me a script that goes, hey, they want to look at, you know, they're casting a movie about surfing. You surf, right? I'm like, yeah, I'm a surfer. Well, you need to, you know, you get to go in on this movie because the producer is the guy that directed me in that first important film I did after Children of the Corn, which was called Grandview USA, which is with Jamie Lee Curtis, Patrick Swayze, Jennifer Jason Leigh, John Cusack, like a cast of thousands. It's a great teen movie if you get a chance to see. Tommy Howell is the lead. Grandview USA. But I mean, no one's talking about it now except me. But anyway, that I did some good work for that director, Randall Kleiser. He directed Grease, Blue Lagoon. He's a big time guy. And he's producing, and he semi-wrote North Shore with his good friend Bill Phelps. He goes, John Philbin, I think he surfs. He did really great work for me in Grandview USA. We'll get him an audition. We'll let him audition. Let's see if he surfs. I get the script. I read it. What character? Turtle? And I'm like, Turtle surfs pipeline. He catches a wave out of pipeline. I go, I need to be in this movie. Jerry Lopez, and I need to be in this. He's like, yeah, you have an audition. I go, no, I need to be in this. I've never felt this way about a part in a movie ever before. So I go in and audition, and they don't see it. I'm pale, I'm fat. I've been doing Westerns. I've got with Southern drawl. I've brown hair, you know, they don't see it. I beg, I go back in. They don't see it. I go to have to do it. Well, look, he can surf. Let's see it. I go do a surf test. It's like 1 foot in Hermosa. I run into the water. I trip. My board hits me between the legs. I'm almost knocked out from a ball shot. I go, you can't show him that scene of me running. I can do this. Believe me. You know, I proved. I go back in 7 times to read.
Wow.
And finally, Randall Kleiser, not the director, the producer, says, listen, he's a method actor, whatever that means. He'll transform into this character over there in Hawaii. Let's give him the part. You know, I think he'll do it. He can do it. The director goes, okay, but they don't see it because I'm nothing like that character. Nothing like it. I get over there and I live on the North Shore. I rent this house that's right at Aokai Beach Park where John Florence grew up. Before John grew up there, Jamie O'Brien lived in that house.
Yeah.
Before Jamie O'Brien lived in that house, I lived in that house with Brian King, and we created the character Turtle together in that gray house right next to the lifeguard tower.
Amazing. What a house.
The power of that house, bro. The history of that house. I haven't told them that. I'm going to tell them that. I'm going to get married at December 28th on the North Shore at Keiki Beach to that beautiful girl you saw who helped me with my things. And I'm going to invite Jamie and John Florence to that. And I'm going to tell them I lived in their house, you know, when I made Turtle. But anyway, yeah, I went over there and just studied that language. I'm kind of a chameleon. I want to fit in. And, you know, I just sat at that park and learned that language. They dyed my hair blonde. They waxed my chest. You know, by the time the director and those guys came over, by the time we started shooting, I went over every scene with Brian King, who was kind of the character they modeled it on. And he helped inform the script. And he just explained to me and read lines with me. And I said, you're living with, are you the guy I'm playing? He's like, yeah. I go, you're living with me. That's it. So I went to school on it, you know, and so it was probably the most informed work I've ever done as an actor. Wow. Because surfing means so much to me. You know what I mean? Yeah. It just means so much to me. And I'm there having lunch with Laird Hamilton and Jerry Lopez, you know, and it's like, I'm just like, you know, surfers, you know, they care about the history of the sport and everything. You don't want to embarrass yourself surfing. You just don't want to embarrass yourself. You know, it's you know, there's feelings behind it. It's not nothing. You know what I mean? It meant everything to me. So, you know, it is probably my most informed performance.
And for us, you know, grommets of the 80s, we've seen Big Wednesday. That was pretty good. We've seen all the other crap, right? Gidget and Elvis and everything else. And we're kind of all, this is the first real crack at Hollywood, you know, doing surfing in the 80s. And every surfer in that audience is like, how's this going to go? Are you going to get this right? Yeah. And so you're really subject to, you know, some horrendous scrutiny. It's like doing a Star Wars movie now, you know, like the fans are so gnarly about it. Get it wrong and they'll just grill you. And, you know, there's an argument to say the movie did get it wrong in some ways. but in so doing, it just got it right, and that's why it's a cult classic. And you're the man with, you know, some of the best lines in the history of cinema, like "When the surf's good, nobody works," and of course, "Pipeline breaks like this," right?
Yeah.
You know, and so
I-
do tell us about working with those guys. I want to know about Jerry, and Jerry played Jerry, but this Jerry is a real asshole, right?
Yeah.
And Laird Hamilton is Lance Burkhart. And of course, being an Aussie, who could I possibly love more than Ockie and Robbie Page, who's also not playing himself? Tell us about acting with those guys, man.
Yeah. So I mean, by the way, when it did first come out, we got crucified, and surfers would come up to me, "Hey man, that guy took off left and he came out right. Like, what's up with that?"
And he was on a longboard,
Yeah,
and then
what's
he was
up
on a
with that?
shortboard.
And I'm like, I'm not that's what an editor does when they get, I go, Hollywood doesn't do reality, bro. Hollywood does fantasies. That's a Hollywood movie, you know, like we just got crucified. Matt Adler quit surfing when he got so much shit, you know, like I'm all over the map. I'm acting up a storm, you know, hamming up a storm. I just got crucified. But time, bro. Stay alive. Hope. Where there's life, there's hope. And the wheel turns. Who knew that would become what it has? It's really there's 3 generations of fans now and there was, when it came out, we were like, did I embarrass myself? You know, is that horrible? Is that horrible? Why would they let a guy go left and then come out right? Why would they allow that in a surf movie? You know, but live and learn. Everybody, we were naive. One of the reasons that movie's so successful is we were naive and we were sincere. And there's no cynicism in that movie. There's not one scene of sarcastic cynicism. People are just so 80s sincere that children and adults can show it to their children and love and fall in love with the ideas, the ideas expressed in that movie. But as an actor, we're going over there, like there's Jerry Lopez, we're out to lunch with them. There's Eddie Rothman. Eddie's going to go to the gym. You guys want to we couldn't even talk, we're like tongue tied around our heroes, he's like, "Why didn't you tell me he wasn't in the back of the truck, man? Speak up," like trying to learn how to, be one of the boys.
Yeah.
All I ever wanted after that, when I got older, was to be one of the boys on the North Shore, and I'll never be one of the boys, because I'm not from there. But that movie has helped me, know people that are in a world that I look up to this day. I am most impressed with North Shore surfing, period. So I'm over there just, indulging. I surf pipeline every day I could. I borrowed boards. You want to know about those actors? What did you want to know about?
Man, you could just keep talking and it wouldn't matter because it's all just so awesome. But
I'm meeting my heroes, and I'm playing a person that's nothing like me, and I've got the guy I'm playing living in my house, and I'm like, I only have to work 3 days a week. It's not that big of a part. My hair's dyed blonde. On the days I'm not working, I'm rehearsing out at Pipeline with prop boards. I live in the house right next to Aokai Park where they park the trucks for acting. I'm working in the water with Brian Keolana and members of the Hui who are, I'll tell you you probably heard when they shoot the scene that I'm surfing Pipeline at, I'll just say, do you want to hear that? It's kind of weird.
Yes.
Okay, so I've gone to the prop truck and taken the boards out that Turtle's supposed to ride. They make 6 of them, different shapers. Dennis Pang, I take them out, paddle out, big wave breaks. I'm a total kook. I'm trying to learn how to surf again. I bail, board snaps. I come in here with 2 halves. They're like, "That's a prop board, man." I go, "I need that one now." Like, none of these things are gonna break. I go, "Listen, I'm an actor. I need to rehearse my scene with my prop. I need that board to go surf pipe right now." They're like, "Don't break it, bro. Just don't break it, man. It hasn't really cured yet." I go, "Hey, I don't know what's going to happen, but I need to rehearse because I'm going to shoot that." I go out there, snap. They're just like, "Fucking this guy, this fucking kook,
All
man."
left.
Yeah, fuck this guy. So we had to, by the time I shot the scene out of Pipeline, they had to go buy a board off the racks. They had made like 6. I broke them all. Anyway, it's a gnarly place, but I'm a total kook. And we would be these total kooks around Robbie Page and Mark Occhilupo and Laird Hamilton and Jerry Lopez, and we'd be out in the water with them, shooting our scenes, and they'd be shooting their scenes, and then we'd get to go, and with Derek Ho, we'd get to go to lunch and eat like a rice bowl and sit with them, like we're living the dream. That is the dream for me, but I'm only working 3 days a week. So 4 days a week, I'm practicing. It's really my character, he's a North Shore surfer who surfs Pipeline, so I'm like hanging out with all these guys that make boards, Charlie Walker, that make boards and that surf pipeline and that talk pigeon, even though they're white, like it does exist. It's not like made up. It does exist, but I kind of expanded on it. But they go, okay, we're gonna shoot you Don King's in the water, some Dan Merkel's on the beach, like guys are like pro. Okay, we're gonna go out. You're one of the actors. Here's your guide. His name was Teddy Bear, and he's a black shorts guy, and he goes out with me. And they just need me to catch like 5 waves until they've got a shot of me surfing pipeline. We did it a couple days. I caught probably 100 waves for that movie, which is the coolest thing that ever happened. And then when we did Point Break, I knew that was going to come around, and I'm like, dude, you do this whole movie for when you've got blockers out of pipeline. I'm telling you. And he's like, yeah. But anyway, I'm out. I paddle out this guy with dyed blonde hair and a little wax chest, and I sit up this kid, this actor. And this Hui guy, there's 50 guys out at pipeline. It's small, it's tiny. It's not the real pipeline, but it's 6 foot faces, And he goes, okay, everybody listen up. When this guy paddles for a wave, raise your hand, Turtle. I'm like, nobody paddles. If you paddle for a wave that he paddles for, I'm going to break your finger.
Eddie, you get Eddie.
If it happens twice, I'm going to clear the water. Okay, we're just going to be here for a little while. Just when this guy calls a wave, okay, Turtle, call your wave, whatever wave you want, you go on. Wow, the pressure, it was just,
wow.
It was amazing. It was amazing. Now, I didn't know how to really take advantage of it, but I knew I'm working. All I cared about is what goes on camera, what ends up on film. My whole life is about action cut, like what happens between those. I didn't care about anything but that. So, when a good wave comes that I look like I could get in the barrel or I could make, I'm like, I'm going, and he was like, go, and everyone was just, I got to catch a bunch of waves out of pipeline that I would never catch under my own, just because of me. So that is an insane experience, and this guy named Adam 12 was teaching me where to sit, where to line up for the waves I could surf, because I can't surf what those, you interview professional surf. That is another league. I can't do what they do. I admire what they do. I paddle out a pipe and just watch them surf from way back in the spot. But I could see, but when I'd be out, there'd be guys like Jerry Lopez out and Derek Ho out, and Laird Hamilton going right. I saw him get the best day at backdoor I've ever seen. And he's like, there's only 4 guys out. Get out here. And I'm like, it's a little big for me. But, he's a monster. He was surfing so good back then. It was insane.
Yeah. Free.
But anyway, that my life over there, I surfed Waimea Bay with Jerry Lopez. Fuck, it was insane. It was a dream come true.
Huge. And I think, it's good that you paddled out and broke boards and you felt like a kook, because that obviously helped you. You obviously felt like an outsider from the beginning, and I'm sure that helped you with the role, because Turtle's a bit of an outsider, right? And all seriousness, I mean, campiness of the movie aside, and maybe alongside Ockie and Laird, let's face it, some of the acting probably wasn't world class, but that's not what that movie was remembered for. And maybe that's part of the charm, and its longevity, as you were saying, the honesty of it. But in all seriousness, John, your performance in that movie was outstanding. I mean, when Turtle was feeling betrayed by Rick and Chandler, the audience could feel that emotion that you were portraying in that role, and you were being serious as an actor. And I think in a lot of ways it probably buoyed that movie up and helped it. Now, it could have sunk really badly. Like, if all of the acting was terrible, it wouldn't have made it. And so I mean that very sincerely. Your acting in that role, your portrayal of Turtle, was a lot more serious than a lot of people probably realise. And I think you did it so well, man. Kudos.
Thanks, Brad. Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. That was really awesome. I cared a lot. Yeah. People would send me a lot of things like, are you still sanding boards and you live in Hawaii, right? I'm like, no, I don't know how to sand a board. I don't know how to make a surfboard. No, I don't live in Hawaii. I live in LA. I'm nothing like Turtle's super cool guy. Like, I'm nothing like him, but he's become kind of an iconic character in the surfing world. And I played him, and so I enjoy that now. There was a time when I was like, please don't call me Turtle. Now I'm like, whatever, go ahead. Yeah, Turtle's awesome. Turtle
Well,
was the best thing I ever did.
Do people come up to you and get their phone and say, "Can you just say pipeline breaks like this?"
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm like, sure. You know, if I'm not with someone, I'm like, yeah, it's a compliment. It doesn't happen very often.
Well, this leads us to the big story that we prefaced at the start of the interview, because I know there is one guy who was sitting on the beach with you, putting his leg rope on at massive G-land with nobody in the water, and he made some stupid comment of like, "Oh, John, by the way, don't be here," right? My man, Wooly McPherson, I know he's listening. Wooly, we love you, man. Let's hear this story, John. Tell us about G-land with the one and only Ian McPherson.
Ian, like, you know, God, what a character. Yeah, my remembering of the story will be different from his. I'm a different person. It was a different experience for me. We woke up, we're at G-land. There's a pretty decent crew there. There's good surfers there. And it's big. It's too big. G-land gets too big. But the tide's coming up and the swell's dropping, you know, and it's too stormy. No one surfed it all day, but it's getting later in the day. And I'm like down at Joyo's. I'm down looking at the boat channel. Like, I go back. I'm like, that's going to be doable. That's going to be rideable. That's going to be a rideable left called Silver into the channel, you know, like from Speedy's into the channel. Like, it's so big that it's going wider than, you know, no one's even out at launching pads. You know, it's, and I'm like, he's the only other fucking taker. I'm like, I got my board. We're putting our stuff on. We're down there looking at it, and we have to paddle out. Here's the coolest thing about it. And it's not, you know, no boats were going out. It's too big. So you have to paddle out. And you had to paddle through the lineup into a current to try to get back to the wave. No one's done it. So we don't know what we're going into, because we're the first ones and the only ones. And as far as we know, we're the guys we're creating. Can that be surfed? Can we get out? And we go to we're the only guys, and there's some good surfers there, you know, like, and we go out and we're the first ones out, you know, and we're like, fuck, you know, getting these insane waves. And next thing you know, a boat comes out, and we're like, because I'm like, this is a weird thing about G-land, you know, like there's a school of old guys, and I'm happy to take a boat out, but I'm like, I'm so bummed that I paddled out with Ian and we're surfing this spot, and guys come out in a boat and they're just allowed to be near us and go on waves we want. Like, and I'm like, there's guys out here that took a boat out. They didn't even paddle out. That's what I'll never forget. I go, you and me paddled out, bro. And I will have that for the rest of my life. I think Stephen Pigo, who's also lives in the camp, he came out, but he didn't get out he didn't get out as first as we did. We were the first guys and the only guys to paddle out. Steve-O might have paddled out, but after us, you know what I mean? And it was not big. It was great. I'll never forget that. But, you know, I've had a lot of great waves in my life. There's a lot of great waves out there. That's one thing. But paddling out to huge G-land when no one else is doing it, that's what I remember. Surfing is a holistic thing for me. It's not just, oh, I got this wave, I got barreled and spit out. You know, no, paddling out to that spot with Wooly, I'll never forget. That was cool.
Yeah, I got the sense that he felt the same way. His version of the story was not very different from yours. He just said, that you guys were first ones up, first ones out, paddle out. It was big. And I know if Wooly says it's big, right? That guy doesn't really exaggerate. And so I think the sense I got from him was he was very proud of you, mate, that you hit water early with him and paddled out there. And he remembers distinctly dropping a turtle line on you right when you're kind of looking out with wide eyes and going, holy shit, this is serious. He's like, John, you're like, what? It's like, don't be here, man. Don't be here.
He's a character. He's a funny guy. I cannot wait to see you again, Ian, and surf with you. I'm so proud of your surf coaching and your board explanation and your surf shop. And you won the award again this year. I'm so proud of you. You're just so great.
He's the old boys state champion too, Wooly, reigning state champion for Western Australia in the old boys division. What? Not surprising the way you surf. Damn you, Wooly. You're just too good, man. All right, that's enough. Let's not pump him up anymore. and you have an ongoing relationship with G-land, right? You get out there, you go regular trips to G-land.
Yeah, I've surfed G-land. You know, I started going there early, 1980. I think I was in G-land in 1981 or 82 or something like that. I'm not sure.
Wow.
Before I was an actor. There was a guy over there, you know, I wasn't a professional actor. I was in college, or I just gotten out of high school or something, and I was surfing G-land. And I told this guy, he's like, I'm going to go to theater school. I'm going to be an actor. And so his nickname for me was Hollywood. okay, Hollywood, yeah, Hollywood, so condescending, like, oh, Hollywood,
Yeah.
like now he calls me Turtle, like his nickname changed. So you can change your nickname. He's gone from like Bali Tom from Tiger Tom to Bali Tom to Pipeline Tom, whatever. It's funny.
Right.
But yeah,
So,
I would see Jerry Lopez. We would be in camp together. We'd surf G-Land camp together. It
come
was
on.
just, it was a big part of my life. I've been there
Yeah.
more than anywhere else, and I got spoiled there because I went there during the. I saw Kelly Slater's stuff. He's in Bali and no one's over there. He's with Strider and Billy Stade, and I'm like, it can be done during COVID. It can be done. So I did. I did all the visas and the vaccinations, and I did the quarantine in Java, in Jakarta. I got over to Bali. I took a boat into G-Land, and it was me and 3 other guys from Hawaii. Actually, one guy was from South Africa, and
Wow.
and just 4 of us, and 3, 2 from Hawaii, me and this guy from Kneeboarder from South Africa, Stevo, and we had the camp to ourselves. They shut down travel between Jakarta and Bali and Java. No one could come in, and we had it for like 6 weeks like that, and it
Come
ruined
on.
me. It ruined me.
Wow.
I'm like, oh, I'm so glad. I'll never forget that. I went, I'll never forget. My times in G-Land are precious. I don't know that
Gotcha.
I'll still be able to keep doing that, but I've been doing it. I survived a tsunami in Bobby's camp. I
Yeah.
went back there for a reunion with Simon Law, and
Mm.
surfed G-Land on the day of the tsunami and together, and it was big and bitching, like it was just me and him out. It's the weirdest. I've had so many weird things happen.
Yeah. It's
Great
a
thing.
crazy place, isn't it? There's some real spiritual energy there. I'm glad you mentioned the tsunami. I've had a Bobby Bain on the podcast, and we've talked about
My
his
tsunami, but
experiences. You were there, and so did you have the same kind of experience as Bob, where your a shack just got destroyed in the middle of the night and you were suddenly underwater?
yes, I heard his story. We did a documentary about it when we were all over there for a reunion. Yeah, and I didn't hear everyone's story until this reunion, 30 years later, whatever.
Mm.
Yeah, middle of the night, sit up in my shack. What's that sound? It sounds like water. Now you're underwater. There's a tree over your shack. The net is down on you. You're curled up like a bug, and you don't know what the heck's going on. You're just lucky you got some breath because you're holding your breath. And I started to hallucinate, and I was just about to drown. I started taking in sips of that death water, those little bubbles in the white. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna take a huge gulp right now. I'm dead, and I'm hallucinating. I just start ripping my tent, my mosquito net tent. I just start ripping it, and right then the surge goes back out to sea, and it takes the roof off, the tree off my roof, the roof off my hut. I rip out of this thing, and I stand up, and the water just goes down to my waist, and a board hits me in the leg, and it's my board. It was on its way out to sea, and I'm like, and I just go running into the jungle, yelling, grab a board, because I was hallucinating that we were underwater, and I was going to come out. If you have a board, you can float, and I was just traumatized, But I went by this guy's tent, and they were dry. They were just standing there going, "What happened?" And we're just in shock. But it's just it's just a matter of inches and feet. If you're up on a higher thing and the water
Yeah.
goes, it's insane. And I'm like, grab a board. And he's like, oh, is that what we're doing? We're grabbing boards. And he looks out and he sees a bunch of boards on the rocks and there's no water. He goes out there to grab a board. And there's boards everywhere, and he gets out and they're all ripped to pieces and they're broken, and it's wet. And he hears this noise. He goes, what am I doing? I've gone out onto the reef, and a tidal wave is coming in, sir. He's like running back in. Luckily he didn't get killed and ground to a pulp. But it's weird. I love Australians for that reason. You say something in earnest, like grab a board. He goes, is that what we're doing? We're grabbing boards because we're working. We're trying to all get this right. Help each other
Yeah.
and survive. That's kind of an Aussie thing. In America, it's every man for himself.
Oh man, it's good to see you can still joke and smile about that. I got the sense of talking to Bob, and shout out to Bob if he's listening, that he's kind of joking and laughing too. But that was an extremely heavy situation, and people died in that tsunami. That's kind of really gnarly, man. And I'm sure there's probably still some PTSD in there somewhere. I mean, I don't know if you've needed to talk to a therapist about that or not, but I can imagine you probably did.
I did.
Yeah.
I had to recognize that that was a trauma-inducing, event. I had PTSD, and when they say you have PTSD, it reminds you of younger traumas that you had. It just triggers trauma from, and some people don't have it, some people do. I had it, and it totally affected my behavior, and I had to really deal with it. I had to deal with that, and I'm just so happy we all survived. I know 234 souls lost their life. Not one surfer died, and I wouldn't have been there if I wasn't a surfer, and I wouldn't have survived if I wasn't a surfer.
For sure, and probably if you didn't spend all that time out at Pipeline getting fucking drilled, man.
Yeah, I know what it's like to be under a big, hold your breath.
Dude, so
not anymore. I never do it now. I never would survive now. But they moved the camp back. Bobby's done a great job with that camp, and God bless him. We've had so many wonderful memories there.
Wow, man, that's rad. And thank you for sharing. It's not an easy thing to talk about, I'm sure. And so let's go back to Matt. I mean, you said that after North Shore he stopped surfing. How long did that? I mean, he surfs again now, right? And you guys are friends, I believe.
Yeah, we've been friends ever since. We're best friends. We made friends on that movie. That movie came out. He got obviously ridiculed surfing. He grew up surfing. He hated the vibe that we originally got from that movie, and he just quit surfing. He goes, fuck it. Every time I go surfing, somebody says something stupid to me. Surfers are brutal. And I have a story about Laird about this, but Matt's like still working as an actor. He's like, fuck, I'm not going surfing anymore. I got other things I can do. He's a scratch golfer, and he's working in, he's the lead in a lot of movies. And he quit. He gave me his surfboard, I'm like, yeah, I'll take him. I'm still surfing, and still loving it. And I started teaching surfing too. I'm like, yeah, this is great. But what happened was, maybe it was 5 years ago or something. I don't know. We used to take trips. We went to Puerto Escondido in the 80s. We went to Tabarua, and we went to G-Land. We went to Bali. We would take surf trips together. And then he just was like, I'm over it. And he quit for almost 10 years. But so a couple years ago, I invited him to a screening of North Shore, brought his whole family. And I go, Matt, you will not believe the love this movie has found an audience that has found an audience. And he brought his family. It was sold out at our local art house theater, sold out with loving fans. I mean, people were on their wedding parties were there. This guy was there on his bachelor's parties. Like, we're all dressed in Hawaiian shirts, and they're like, well, I'm on my bachelor party. And we're like, you're on your bachelor party to a screening of North Shore. We're like, they were just full of love and appreciation. And he was like, God, I had no idea. I had no idea that existed. I mean, yeah, and it's great, and he's like, he goes, John, I'm going to start surfing again. I go, why? He goes, because I'm in the best shape of my life. I've been training, I've been working out, and I want to start surfing again. And I don't want to surf one time until I go to this tropical place in the Mentawais and surf with you. I'm not going to surf till I get there. And I'm like, cool. Because I've been going to Indonesia forever. And so like I couldn't ever afford this first rank. We went to the first time Matt surfed was at the villas. Like, we went out to Four Bobs, I think. First time he'd surfed in forever. I might not have been Four Bobs, might have been somewhere else. But Kandui Villa Resort. And it's first class. And he gets in the water and he's surfing. And, it takes him a little while. By the end of the trip, he's surfing as good as he was when he was younger. Now he surfs better than he ever has. He loves it so much. He bought a place at Point Doom. He's a very successful guy. And he bought a second house at a surf place that you need a key to get into that's semi-private. And he surfs these perfect waves. It's like going back in time in California. I go out with him, and the guy's surfing better and loves it. Like, surfing is the fountain of youth. We go surfing together, and it's just me and him, and we're like little kids again. We're like 12 years old. Yeah. That's how wonderful and magical this place is, because there's no one out. It's a private place. And and then some guy will come out and he'll look at us, and it's just me and him. And he's like, and he'll kind of freak out. He'll get a funny look on his face. Sometimes he won't know. Other times he'll be like,
it's Rick and Turtle. What the fuck?
We'll hear later, like, God, some guy will be at a restaurant going, I was out in the water and I was surfing with Rick Kane and Turtle. We're surfing with it. It's weirdest. I thought I was dreaming, but it's a real thing. We go surfing together and we love it. We love it so much. Surfing is the greatest.
Sure is, man. That's awesome.
Matt and I are going to the Mentawais. We're going to the Telos Islands in March together.
Dude, that place is so insane.
I've never been to the Telos. I'm so stoked. He finds these little gem spots. He goes, okay, I'm going to go here, because he's got to do these strike missions,
Yeah. Doing it right, man. Doing it right. Kandui, Telos. Yeah, insane. Awesome, man. And, maybe the fact that you guys, have ended up lifelong friends, that might have something to do with the chemistry on screen, because you could feel that friendship was there, and how disappointed Turtle was when Rick let him down. Do you know what, man? This is a piece of useless information, but the number of times that I've seen North Shore and seen Teen Wolf, it was literally doing a bit of research to talk to you today that I clicked for the first time that Matt is Michael J. Fox's character's dubious friend who's not so keen on the wolf. For some reason, I never twigged that was Rick Kane. Anyway,
Yeah,
we digress. Let's keep following your career, because we've been talking for close to an hour and we haven't even got to 1991's blockbuster Point Break, where you played career criminal Nathaniel alongside Keanu Reeves and Patrick Swayze. Mate, tell us about landing that role.
Cool. So I'm doing like TV movie out in, I was working in other things, and Tony Scott was going to do this movie that had surfing in it called Riders on the Storm. It was with, I'm not sure what studio it was with, but I go in and meet him. It might have been Ridley Scott. It might have been Tony Scott. But Charlie Sheen's going to play Johnny Utah, and I go in and read for Bodie. And I was kind of on a streak. I was doing well, and I was so confident. Like, I remember Brad Gerlach's dad telling him, confidence is so important. I was so confident about what I was doing. Anyway, he liked my audition, and he gave me a small part in the movie Riders on the Storm, part of Nathaniel. And I'm like, I'm in another surf movie. And it's a big studio thing. I've got a small part, but it's an important part, and I've never been happier. My life is just, I cannot believe how lucky I am. And I'm going to do this movie, and I'm studying the part. I'm like, I'm going to do great. And then I get a call. Hey, that movie's dropped. It went into turnaround. The studio dropped it. It's done. They took the back off. They're not going to make the movie. I'm like, fuck. But I go about my business, and I'm shooting a movie called Dillinger with Mark Harmon out in Wisconsin. And I get a call from my agent. Hey, that movie Point Break, remember like 6 months ago? That movie's back on. They've got a new director, Catherine Bigelow, and Keanu Reeves going to be in it, and Patrick Swayze, who you've worked with before. And I'm like, yeah, I love Buddy. We're friends. You got the same part. They made you the offer. If you want to go and meet her, you can. I'm like, I want to meet her. I want to tell her how excited I am. I fly back. I'm like, I'm so excited. I've got a picture of me skydiving, a picture of me surfing pipeline. And I go, this is me. I was born to play this part. I'm robbing banks in Wisconsin right now. And she's like, yeah, you got the job. You don't have to, don't audition. You'll talk your way right out of this job, man. I was so excited, but the part had changed a little bit, but boy, were we lucky with her as a director. We went and read. I was there from the table reading till the end of the movie. Matt Archibald's in that movie. Yeah. I got to meet Archie and surf the North Shore with Archie, which is magic. I'd also surf G-Land with Archie.
Probably my favorite surfer, man.
Oh, the best surfer, the best style in the world ever. He did magic. He's just a magician. Some people are touched by God and with a talent that you can't explain in acting and in surfing, in anything, and he's got it. He's touched by God for sure. I love that guy, and I always will. But yeah, I'm there with Patrick. And do we have to go?
No. I was giving a shout out to Matt. I don't know if he still listens to the podcast, but if he does, you're a legend, mate. We love you.
Yeah, love you. So yeah, I'm playing an asshole in that movie. We got a personal trainer, me and
gnarly dude,
Patrick, and all the gang members. We're going to Gold's Gym. We're on we've been put on a diet. We're working out. It's hardcore. I'm surfing. This other guy, Bo Jesse, is a surfer. The other guys are taking surfing lessons or trying to learn, spending a lot of time in the water. And by the time we're shooting, Patrick has just embraced us and his gang, and just made us his family. And we just love him. And I'm just all in that movie, just all in as a dick, as an asshole. I was an aggressive asshole during that time. I'll say, we didn't mix much. It was hardcore. If I could have my life over again, I probably would have, if I knew what I know now, but I don't. I was a young guy full of, I was just whatever. But that was a good time, man. All we were doing is surfing, lifting weights, eating clean, riding motorcycles with Keanu, and jumping out of perfectly good airplanes. And it was and Patrick Swayze and Keanu's the smartest guy in any room he walks into. He would never let you know it though. People, talk about him, you cannot judge a book by its cover. That guy's a genius with a photographic memory and just the coolest, most generous guy. And Patrick Swayze, people talk about it. They loved him. He gives 100% on rehearsals. He's like insane, 100% all the time, and full love, just love and support. I don't know when he slept, man, that guy was insane. So yeah, and Catherine Bigelow, like, she's a visionary director, Hurt Locker, and she saw something in Keanu and made him a movie star. She said, I think he can do this, he's as powerful as Patrick, and look at his career, and it's just, that was another really lucky swing, I got a couple lucky swings. I don't know if I would have gotten in that movie if I hadn't been in North Shore. I'll never know. I'll never know why I got cast in that. I'm a surfer and an actor who take both those things very seriously. And I just got lucky that those two movies grew a base, like they have legs. They have stood the test of time for whatever reason and become cult-like movies, and I was lucky enough to be in both of them. Me and Gary Busey. Gary Busey, instantly, because Big Wednesday is my favorite movie. He plays the masochist in Big Wednesday. So as an actor surfer, my claim to fame is Turtle gets shot by the masochist in Point.
Yeah, that's right. They all came together. Exactly right. And that's kind of what I was saying in my introduction. There's three movies there for me, and I don't know, it's hard to pinpoint why they got it right, but they did in some way or another. And I actually distinctly remember spotting you on screen for the first time in Point Break and going, oh, wow, that's Turtle. Fuck, that guy must really surf. That was my thought. Yeah.
Turtle's in Point Break. Yeah.
And Nathaniel is obviously a very, very different character from Turtle. And you talk about, kind of turning into an arsehole in real life kind of thing. I want to know a bit about that. That subject interests me because, famously or maybe infamously, Bill Murray came to Australia and hung out with a bunch of surfers and went to G-Land and stuff as a way of trying to kind of deprogram his head after playing Hunter S. Thompson. He just wanted to get as far away from Hollywood as he could to kind of reset and come back to reality. It's hard for, I guess, non-actors to imagine that. That you get so absorbed in the mindset of your character that it starts to kind of blur into your real life. Tell us about that, and how hard is it to get in and then back out again of those characters?
Yeah, it's been a long time since I've gone in that rabbit hole, but I just wasn't a good enough actor, I guess. I just hadn't had the training and the facility to be able to have my imagination working so well that I was reacting honestly as a human being in a created environment, a situation, in a character that wasn't anything like me, without having to try to become like that character. So, a lot of actors do that, and I don't know that it's, some actors don't think it's cool. Some actors are so good and so great on film and so natural and relaxed. They don't have to, do that. But I just felt it was, the only way I could do something good. I felt like I had to adopt some of the characteristics of the character I was playing and practice them when I wasn't on film, so that I had them. So I felt it wasn't that big of a jump from ready, action. You know what I mean? So I was already
kind of like skateboarding when there's no surf, right? You got to keep in the groove.
I was just that kind of an actor at that time anyway. I'm probably not like that anymore. I wouldn't know, but I had to do that, and I understand. Yeah, Bill Murray went with Peter McCabe, who I've surfed G-Land with 100 times. Fuck, my hero, my captain. And what a great thing. Yeah, you ought to go. You want to do something really crazy? You want to come with us to G-Land? Bill Murray. Yeah, what a legend. But a lot of actors have a double life. Like you see them on screen, you think you know them because they give you everything they have. They just give you everything they have. Like Heath Ledger, and then you hear these stories about their real life and how it's tortured and how they might be angry or miserable or how they've mistreated someone or they've got these demons, and it's a service job. It's a good job, but it's a service job, and some people realize how lucky they are and they give it their whole life. They give it everything they've got, and they pay a price for that on the back end. That's why it's different from any other. It's kind of different from, performing arts, or they're kind of different. There's this, anyway, I don't know if that answers your question, but that's how I was, like, so
Yeah.
during that movie, I did a lot of, if I go back and cringe at some of the shit I said and did when I wasn't on camera.
I think we all do, though.
talk about it. Yeah. Yeah.
That's right, man. And the movie was obviously ginormous. I mean, did that kind of change your life? Were you famous at that point in a different way than you were before, or?
No, it did not change my life in at all, because I think I was studying acting with Larry Moss. I'm one of those overtrained, underemployed LA actors who hates to work and would rather go surfing. But at the time, I was nothing. I was so serious, That movie came out, and I'm studying acting at an acting school, Larry Moss Acting School, which with great actors, and I'm trying to be a great actor at that time. And class ends, and someone goes, "What are you going to do?" And I go, "I'm going to go see Point Break." And they just go, "Point Break? Fucking, like, that's so stupid. What a dumb movie. Why would you see Point Break?" And I was like, "Cause I'm in it, like I got a part in it." They're like, "Oh, sorry, bro." But there's a pretentious aspect of acting in the circles I was in, and surfing wasn't considered something that a serious actor would ever do. Now, I mean, I teach surfing, now it's like, if you make a lot of money in your life, if you're very successful and you have some free time and some extra money, you go surfing. So you go with Kai Lenny and you learn how to surf in Kauai or anywhere. You go with Laird Hamilton, or you go to Kelly Slater's wave pool. If you're a billionaire, you go surfing. It's no longer looked at the way it used to be looked at.
It's so different, and it's gone through so many.
Have you seen?
Yeah.
I mean, I've been to Kelly's Ranch, but I mean, that guy who rides that jet ski that works there, he takes beginners and he puts their board in the spot, and people who've never even started riding, like getting down and getting barreled. I remember going to Desert Point one time on a trip when I was in Indo and watching this guy learn to surf at Desert Point as an adult. And he gets on his board and he stands up, and then slowly, it's a mushy takeoff, it's a burger, and then you chill into it, and then it races.
The gnarliest wave in the world.
Gets up, and he bends down, and he just comes out, stick figure over the back. I'm like, oh my God, that guy just learned to surf at Desert Point. That's what's happening now.
Wow.
Artificial.
Yeah, the swings and roundabouts, John. Like, we were talking before, there's kind of, I don't know, 4 or 5 or 6 really distinct phases in the history of modern surfing, when it came from Hawaii to Australia and California. Like the 50s, you've got Mickey Dora, who's a notorious career criminal, like a real life Nathaniel, but a supreme talent and the king of Malibu in the late 50s. And then the Gidget thing happens, and there's such irony here because Mickey was doing the stunt surfing in most of those movies, and then writing them off whenever he was interviewed by a surfing magazine that's not real surfing, it's commercial, it's bullshit. And, then he'll go in a surf competition and win it, and then stand up on the thing and, like, moon the crowd and break the trophy and say competition surfing's ruining surfing and all this. So that rebellionism came in the late 60s, and the shortboard revolution and the psychedelic drugs that we were talking about. And then so in the early 70s in Australia, at least, surfers were frowned upon by conventional society as these low lifes and these losers. And then 10 years later in the 80s, it's this massive commercial thing. And you're in North Shore, and there's, bright coloured surfwear. Those companies are suddenly, they're worth millions. And then in the 90s, there was the kind of the grunge thing, and like it's not cool to sell out and all of that. And you did Point Break right in the middle of all of that. And so you're kind of being judged harshly again, but you've come out clean, because here we are, however many years later it is, I don't know. And as you're saying, surfing's now massively embraced by mainstream culture, huge commercial, entity. And we're looking back at a handful of those movies and talking about how much we love them. And you were right there, front row center, man, right in the middle of it.
Yeah, I'm lucky. So stay alive, everybody. You never know what's going to happen. Just stay alive. There's life. There's
come back around. It's like that old pair of flared jeans, hang them up in the cupboard for 30 years and you can wear them again. So let's stay with your career. So then just after that, I mean, you're in Tombstone in 93. That was a big movie. after that, you kind of took a break from acting. What was behind that decision?
That's an interesting way of putting it, Brad. Yeah, I couldn't get a job. After Tombstone, I did something else, and I just couldn't get a job. I don't know why. I was too old. I nobody wanted me. Hollywood were starting to look at other things, and I got really depressed. And I'm like, I was spoiled when I was younger. Tombstone, Point Break, North Shore. Children. I was spoiled, and I didn't take it well. I hadn't really matured. I didn't understand my place in Hollywood or my place in the world. I was kind of a narcissistic, self-centered, entitled, spoiled actor. And when I stopped working, I got depressed. I didn't have the one thing that I lived for. I lived for it. It was everything to me, and I didn't have it. I had surfing, but I got, it was after the tsunami, actually. I came back to LA and I just kind of had a little breakdown. I just started doing drugs and drinking alcohol excessively, addictively, and going out again, like to the clubs like I did when I was a kid. And I'm not a kid anymore. I was not a kid anymore. And I just happened to be, alcoholic and addictive personality. I just happened to be that way. And so it took over. It became my life. That's all I did. That's what I was living for. I even went, I remember being in G-Land. I was a full drug addict. Like I've been there as a drug addict. I'm so lucky I survived these days because I was taking large quantities of opiates, and drinking and taking benzodiazepam. And I talked to my fireman friend and he goes, God, you're lucky you woke up this morning. I mean, you're really lucky you didn't die last night. You got to be really careful mixing these drugs. I didn't know. I'm just lucky. It's God allowed me to live through those days. And so yeah, I couldn't get a job. I was unemployable and unemployed, and I just crashed, and it was hard. It's not an unusual story, it's actually kind of a common story, but it's what happened to me. And I had to hit an extreme low bottom and go to jail, and to get a spiritual awakening again, to be born again, sober, and to be appreciative and to be grateful for no matter what. So just be alive. And that happened to me. And I got really lucky in that I survived and I got sober again, and which I am right now. And my life I love my life. I love my life right now. And all those things, like I went through a stage back then. Hollywood was on my resentment list. Like I'm like, fuck Hollywood. I hate Hollywood. Look, I didn't look what happened to me here or this. Now it's on my gratitude list. I'm grateful for everyone, like those horror movies. I'm grateful for those horror movies. So now I go around and meet fans all over the United States for those horror movies. I'm so grateful. And North Shore, Point Break, Tombstone, I'm so grateful for those opportunities. Yeah, it wasn't big parts, but you have someone in the other room that just came by, right, that wants to talk to you, right? Because of your eye, I saw your eyes. But anyway, I am grateful. Everything that was on my list is on my gratitude list.
No, I was just looking at our audio to make sure we're still recording because this feels like a really important part of the story. And, as you say, not uncommon at all for people who've experienced, any kind of fame or success in that part of the world in Hollywood. But I didn't know that about you, John, and it is interesting to hear you talk about it. And, I guess the only thing to say, probably two things to say is, we all know now that Hollywood, the trappings of fame and trying to get roles and whether or not the movie's going to be a success. We actually know that a lot of casualties do get left behind in the wake of that big Hollywood machine. It's not an easy life. And also in any other kind of venture like professional sports or arts, to be successful early when you're young and immature and think, this is easy, I've got talent, I'm going to coast. And at some point, reality is going to slap you in the face when you get too old or too cocky or whatever it is. And, all I can say, man, is kudos to you for, thank God you're here. Thank God you came out the other side. Same thing I said to Matt Archbold. We can all learn from your story now because you're here to talk about it. I think that's hugely important to tell the next generation, don't do what I did. Be smarter, be more aware, have some support. It's what's missing, I think. It was missing in professional surfing. It's better now.
Yeah, it's better now for sure.
Yeah, it's better now because people talk about it. I think in the old days there was a stigma to any kind of mental health challenge or addiction that you don't talk about it because you're a loser or something, and so you didn't get the support. So well done, mate. You're still here. Thank God.
Yeah.
Thank God for surfing.
I got a lot of help. I'm very lucky. I had a lot of help from a lot of people that were like, you are sick and you need help, and I got a lot of help, and I just finally accepted it, and took to it. I went all in that recovery world, and then you can help others, and that is one of the great joys of my life. I had to see how horrible my life could get, and before I could go, hey, look, this happened to me, and you can survive this. If it's happening to you too, you can survive. Just stay alive, and hope springs eternal.
Yeah, man. And I mean, in terms of casualties, I mean, you had one on Point Break, right? I mean, the kid in the surf shop who sold Keanu's character his surfboard and said, hey, man, you're not too old or whatever. That kid didn't make it. He fell victim to his addictions and things. I'm sorry, I don't remember his name. I'm sure you probably do. Or
no, I don't remember his name, but he was a South Bay kid, beautiful kid. Everybody loved him, sweetheart of a guy. And fell victim to his addictions. It happens a lot. Australia just lost an amazing young surfer who got hit outside of a bar and killed. And he was just a great, a friend of mine, Jesse Fain, is this Australian that went back to Australia and to be with his people again and mourn that loss, because he's it's a shame. It's a dangerous.
Yeah, that's right. And I actually haven't recorded a podcast episode in a little while, so I haven't actually had a chance to give a shout out to Davo's friends and families. If they're listening, that's a huge loss, and we're sorry. And maybe while we're kind of on that sort of a little bit of a downer here, and we'll pick it back up shortly, but also losing Patrick Swayze to cancer, I'm sure that affected you personally. I'm guessing that you and Patrick remain friends, and that must have been a tough loss for you too, and sorry for that loss, John.
Yeah, he's a magic person. I mean, that guy was a magic person. He'll live on forever in our hearts, and he's done so much great film work, and the outpouring of love that he got from all around the world, because people loved that man. He really gave it all. He really gave it all. It was an impressive to see. But yeah, I wanted to say one thing about Western Oz. In all my time in G-Land, I think, North Shore surfers are my favorite surfers, but then followed closely by Western Oz surfers, because my surf guru in G-Land in the early days was a guy named Camel, and Camel was a legend in the Western Oz.
He sure is.
And I was like, fuck Western. And so when people come over, I'm like, where are you from? And they'd be like, Margaret River. I'm like, yeah, like that's where Camel was from. Like he was, and I'll love that guy. And I'll love that guy till the day I die. Like we had a lot of special times, and he's a character. He's a special guy.
He's probably not listening because the podcast is probably too technologically advanced for Camel, but you never know. He might be in the desert somewhere. I'm not sure where he is, but
living out in the desert. But I love that guy forever. And Western Oz surfers would come over there, and they'd know they weren't intimidated by the reef, or and I was like, that's cool, man, because I grew up surfing reef, kind of reef breaks, not beach breaks, and I learned, and I surfed in Hawaii a lot too. So when I'd see guys come over, I would go, oh, that guy's used to some open ocean surfing, which is not for everyone, not for everyone.
Yeah, that's right.
My hat's off to the Western Aussie guys.
Thank you, man. Thank you. I'll take that. But yeah, I think, for us, for me and other surfers from around, I mean, I'm in Perth, which is notoriously known for kind of bad surf, but we've got some islands and reefs just out there, and Margaret River's only a couple of hours down the road, and we got the desert for a big trip. So, I mean, most West Aussie surfers are pretty comfortable in big gnarly stuff. And I think, there's three, I've surfed all over the world, and there's really three places in the world that kind of have a whole bunch of similarities, and it's the Southwest, and it's Indo, and it's Hawaii. We feel kind of almost at home, or it reminds us of home anyway. It's probably the right way to say when you're out at Big Ulus or on the North Shore or something like that. But thanks, man. And I get that a lot. I mean, a lot of my guests,
we noticed that about you guys.
Oh, yeah. CJ Hobgood, at the end of my interview with CJ, he said a similar thing, and Matt Archbold said the same thing, and he said he's coming over, so let's get him over here, man.
I'm in good company. You have great guests, man. You're a good interview. This is fun.
Thanks, man. Cool. Well, and I'm not done. I hope you don't mind.
Okay. No, I'm here. Totally.
I had a feeling we were going to talk for a while because you've got such a great story. The next thing I want to ask you is, so you changed your career at that point, right? I mean, you moved into surf coaching and you famously trained Kate Bosworth that taught her to surf for the movie Blue Crush.
Yeah.
So, and let me ask you about how important is it to have surfers doing their own surfing in these movies? Because, you know, I talked in the intro about Elvis Presley. I mean, gone are the days of Elvis standing in front of a green screen and some stagehand throws a bucket of water in his face or whatever, you know. It seems to be surfers doing, actors doing their own surfing is really just part of the deal now. Is that super important to get that authenticity on the screen?
I think so, for certain, you know, the verisimilitude, you know, even with gunplay and judo, and, you know, you look at what Tom Cruise, you know, how invested these actors are in their stunt work, you know, like, because what it does to the audience member when you watch movies, you know, it takes you right out of it when it's so obviously, you want to have the suspension of disbelief that the character is going through these things. So when you see an actor replaced by a stuntman in it's obvious, ridiculous, and we all are, you know, stuntmen are great, but you want to, so a lot of actors are athletes too, and they want to do it. But back then I was, I mean, I got lucky with that. The reason I started teaching surfing is I didn't know how to do anything else. I couldn't get a job as an actor. I just got started. I'm like, what can I don't know how to do anything. I know how to surf though. And I went down and I got a job at this guy, Kip Jurger's surf camp, Kanoa Surf. And I started teaching surfing. The next guy, I was 50, I think, or 40 something, the next 40. And the next guy was like 16, you know, like, you know, he was in high school. But I learned how to teach surfing, and then I moved up to Malibu, and I was like, I can do this privately. And then I was doing private lessons because they had, you know, a little more, I lived up there. And then I got that job from John Stockwell, who I'd done a movie with called Undercover as an actor when he was a director. He was in Top Gun and some other movies. He's a really, really good actor who became a really good director.
Somebody just decided to start doing some drilling, if you can believe that.
I can.
I hope they're just hanging up one picture because we're not done here. Carry on.
You know, yeah, I got that job from John Stockwell and Brian Grazer, who lived in the house right next to where I teach surfing, you know, like, and I think I'd worked with him or his kid or his wife or something. And now I'm working for their production company teaching this actress, you know, she's one of the actresses we're looking at. And so I got the job, and we just trained every day. She was a super athlete, wanted to be a movie star, very ambitious, young, fantastic actress. But I didn't know her, you know, like, I just knew she was serious. Like, we went and paddled and learned, and, you know, pop up, paddle, swim. But Hawaii is a different story. It was flat the whole time we worked in California. All I did was teach her how to paddle and how to turn. I got some pictures of her popping up and riding waves at Point Doom, you know, and beautiful pictures, you know, and really I was training her to play a surfer. I'm just training her to play a surfer.
Right.
Because when she got over into Hawaii, Brian Kealana took over Hawaiian Water Patrol, and I'd worked with Brian, you know, a bunch of times. Brian leads every movie, Brian Kealana and Terry Ahui, and he took her out into the ocean in Hawaii when she got there and just held on to her, and he said she was scared to death. She fucking had no idea. But she had developed such strong paddling. He just got her swimming, you know, and he taught her safe places that, you know, she was such a strong paddler from all we ever did was paddle, you know, and surf 1 to 2 foot waves in Malibu. But she's out there and it's 10 feet. And that's her paddling out at Pipeline. There's a deep channel there, and Brian's watching her. You can see there's a bunch of water patrol around her, but that's her paddling at Pipeline. I was so proud. I'm like, that's an actress, Kate Bosworth, paddling at 10-foot Pipeline with Tom Carroll taking off and getting hit in the head and bleeding on his board in the water. I mean, if you've been in the water at Pipeline, you see where those guys take off at the peak. You're in the water when that wave goes under you, you know, watching it explode on that reef. That's her paddling around. And I was like, good job, Kate. Full commitment.
Amazing,
and
commitment.
that made me a surf instructor to the stars, you know. And then I was just teaching surfing to like Blue Crush, you know, kids and their parents.
Yeah,
it was a good career. I still do it. I have a very small clientele. I only do privates, but it's been a good career for me. It's been a second career that got me back into movies, because I worked for Brian Grazer a couple times, and he put me in one of his TV shows as an actor who surfs Pipeline. I've surfed Pipeline in 3 different characters for 3 different Hollywood productions. You know, awesome. two of them came out, North Shore and Point Break, but the Brian Grazer TV show called Rocky Point or The Break or something never came out. But I played Eddie Rothman, and I and I got to surf pipeline. It was pretty fun. It was, I mean, for me, epic.
Well, I feel like kind of everything you've done in the last sort of 20 years, you've kind of been a surfer, it looks like. I mean, I'm just kind of interrogating IMDb, but there's a bunch of things that I be honest, I wasn't aware of. But like, so what's Riptide? It looks like you've combined your horror movie and surfing together into one.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I did a bunch of movies that like I wasn't really taking acting seriously. Someone would look at me and go, "Hey, man, are you still acting?" Like it might not even have been a SAG movie, and I just get my part and I go, "Yeah, I'll do anything." You know, like fuck, I love acting. I'll do anything. I don't even get to see the movies or anything. You know, I didn't even get to see this Malibu bikini party or something like that until the other day. My fiance is really technical, and she'll go, Hey, John, did you do this movie? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't think so. You go, well, here you are in it. And she'll put it on. Shit.
But cool stuff. It's cool stuff that I wasn't aware of, and I've been trying to chase some of it down. But I know you've done some producing as well, Chasing the Dream, doco about school kids. Movie. Yeah, let's talk about that. Great. Gary boosting the rating.
Angelo May, he was working. You know, he worked for a long time in reality television, but he is a surfer and a great filmmaker. And he came up with a concept, and Quicksilver backed him, and Metal Storm Entertainment backed him. And he made a documentary about the Huntington Beach high school kids competing against the San Clemente high school kids. It covered 2 years. They went to Australia to train. And he's asking me, I'm a consultant really on the movie. I demanded a producer credit because I attached Gary Busey as the narrator. He goes, could you get Gary Busey? I go, yeah, I could get him, but I want a producer credit. And you can talk to me and ask me any questions you want. So I'm really a consultant on the film, but I get a producer credit. But I'm so proud of him. And we screened the movie in Santa Barbara Film Festival. We won a bunch of awards, and it never got a fair distribution deal. And that happens in movies. Chasing the Dream is a great movie. And it's a documentary, and it's still appropriate today. You know, it should be, everybody in high school should see it. I mean, and in junior high. It's a really heartfelt, great movie that Angelo did, and I was really happy to be a producer on that. I'm also a producer on Helen Hunt's movie called Ride with Luke Wilson. If you do see that movie, because I taught her how to surf, then she gave me a little job in her movie, but with Bethany Hamilton. I actually played like this little. I'll get these little bones that actors will throw me because I'm their surf instructor, and you know, but I got the producing credit on Ride because one of the characters is based on me. I went, I want a credit. You don't have to pay me, but that guy gives my surf lesson to you in the movie. So that's my lesson. I want to produce. I'm like, they didn't want it, but that's how you get them, man. You got to take what you can get.
That's awesome, man. And look, I guess probably maybe final question for you. I mean, you've had an amazing career. You've worked with some incredible actors. And we've talked about obviously your relationship with Matt, but are there any others that you keep in touch with and you surf with, or actually surf, that might be a surprise to people?
No, I wish. I wish I could tell you that I'm friends with Hemsworth or Kelly. I go surfing with Kelly or Derek, or John or Jamie O'Brien. I have been lucky enough to do a little skit with Jamie O'Brien, and I got to surf pipeline with Jamie O'Brien, and I love that guy for that. He's like, okay, because I needed to catch a wave for this shot. And he goes, I'm going to paddle forward. Everyone's going to stop paddling, bro. And I'm going to pull back, and you better go. I go, I will. I've done this before, man. So, So it's been a great ride. I just want to say the most interesting movie I've done lately is called Undateable John, and you can get it on Amazon.
I know about this.
I play myself.
I know who your co-star is, Joan Jett, right?
Yeah, Joan Jett and Daryl Hannah and Tom Arnold. It's a really fun movie, but I almost play myself. Almost.
Oh, man, I got to get that one. As soon as I saw Joan, get in the shot.
I'm going to marry this woman December 28th. Oh,
I understand why. That makes a lot of sense.
Isn't she beautiful? She just makes my life complete.
That's so great, man. That is such an awesome way to end this interview, and it's been so much fun for me, John. I can't tell you, man.
You're great. Thank you. Thank you for everything. You're really, really special. That was fun.
Let's keep in touch, my friend. Maybe we'll get to go for a surf together one day.
I hope so. That would be awesome.
God bless you, man.
All right. God bless you. Thank you very much.
Cheers, John.
Just a quick reminder that this episode was brought to you by Star Surf and Skate. For all your surf hardware and coaching needs, visit Star Surf and Skate today. Mandurah Terrace, Mandurah, or online at starsurf.com.au. Thanks, and see you next time.